these World and Duel Links? Fuck, I have to learn synchros again. Well, at least I can do more with Zack and Ray's deck now.
Boo!
Ah! Morgan! Wait, why are you dressed as a vampire?
Halloween?
Halloween.
Halloween!
Oh, so you're dressed up?
Yep.
Anything else I'm missing?
Theory?
Oh! Right. Cue intro! I'm Light Melody, and welcome to Fire Emblem Theory. The game is Awakening, and today we will be looking at Kjelle, which is actually said like Shell from Portal, so it's actually Shell, because it's Swedish, and Google says so. So, there you go, it's Shell. Today, because it's the month of October, Morgan is joining me.
Hooray!
If you don't know already, I'm looking at all the children as if they come from one timeline alone, minus the Morgans since they do come from another timeline, and Lucina for various reasons. So, go watch the other ones.
Anyway, Shell is the daughter of Sully, who don't share the same hair color?
Literally, only Shell and Inigo don't share their hair colors with their mothers. But let's see who Sully can marry. The lucky candidates are Chrom, Frederick, Virion, Stahl, Vike, Kjelle, Donnel, Longue, Rickon, Gaius, Gregor, Libra, and Henry.
And we can take out Frederick, Virion, Stahl, Vike, Kjelle, Longue, Rickon, Gregor, and Henry.
Which leaves us with Chrom, Donnel, Gaius, and Libra. And as soon as I mention Chrom, I know people in the comments are going to be like, Chrom is canonly married to Sumiya, which isn't true.
Anyway, let's move on to the classes. Sully starts as a Cavalier and access to Myrmidon and Riven Rider. Shell starts with Knight and access to Cavalier, Myrmidon, and Riven Rider. Wait, she has 4?
Apparently, she also doesn't share her starting class with her mother. We know Kjelle became a knight because she's not good with horses. I mean, at least she found a way to still be of use as a knight, and all her training doesn't go to waste. But let's look at the 4 men we have left. Chrom starts as a lord with access to Cavalier and Archer. Donnel starts as a villager with access to Mercenary and Fighter. Gaius starts as a thief with access to Myrmidon and Fighter. And Libra starts as a priest with access to Mage and Dark Mage.
So, Chrom has Cavalier in common, Donnel has nothing, Gaius has Myrmidon, and Libra has nothing.
Now, to look at the growth rates, the basic of basic. Which, to no surprise, Sully is better than Shell at everything with the exception of magic, oddly enough. So let's compare with Chrom and Donnel first. All stats pointed out are all gonna be lower than Sully's, but can still be greater or lower than Shell's. Chrom is lower in magic than Shell, and well, everything else is equal to Sully. Doesn't really help in the long run. Donnel equals Shell in resistance, higher in skill and speed than Shell, and lower in magic. Next, Gaius equals Shell in resistance and lower in magic, luck, and defense. And lastly, Libra, who is lower than Kjelle in luck and defense, and higher in strength, skill, and speed. And the exception this time is that Libra has the highest magic skill, so it'll be worth 0.5 as always. Counting everything including classes, Chrom is at 1.5, Donnel is at 2.5, Gaius is at 3.5, and Libra is at 3.
So, Chrom has the least in common with Shell? Does that mean he's out?
Technically, but let's try to figure out what else there is to Shell's father or herself before I cut Chrom out completely. So let's see, Shell is... Well, for one, we know Shell is very bad at cooking, just like her mother. But she does get help at learning how to cook better by her father, if we go by the supports that she has with her father. Otherwise, Kjelle, at least in her older self, is one, very brash, mostly to men, and prideful. Kjelle does seem to take a lot after her mother, and as for her father, we know basically nothing besides all her supports with her father is that they know how to cook, if not at least basically. But Kjelle, well, she does kind of remind me of Long Q, but her problem is the opposite of his. However, Kjelle, and I don't think I'm wrong in thinking this after looking at her supports, does think of men as weak to some degree, though not to the extreme as Tenko from Danganronpa, who calls all males degenerates. At least in Kjelle's head, she will always challenge some guy to prove she is the better warrior, even as a girl. But this is also her problem because it can get too out of hand. Like in the support with Robin, challenging him to spar and spar made Robin notice she doesn't like losing and will keep facing the same problem head on. Much like Sully, except probably times 100.
Well, what does that prove?
Along with the fact she doesn't know or love shopping or using cosmetics, I think she lost Sully first and then her father sometime after. She has more resentment towards her father than her mother. She is more critical of men in her army and would praise women much more. This is shown in her support with Lucina if they aren't siblings. She only praises and respects men she finds worthy, and I think this is because she ended up being mostly raised by her father before he died. Therefore, she has much more attachment to her father than her mother. I mean, Kjelle didn't even recognize Sully when they met in the past. So that's saying something. But she would be able to recognize her father a lot more clearly, because when you recruit with Crom and Sully are married, Kjelle would recognize Crom right away, which really doesn't make sense because of something that I'm going to point out later, but she does recognize Crom, and it's like trying not to say that they're related or anything. She just kind of backs off a little. This is my thinking though. Sully and her husband raised Kjelle. Sully trains Kjelle with everything she knows. However, I think her father would have tried to get Kjelle into things that are more feminine, like cosmetics and such, because I think that's what Lucina, Cynthia, and Sever were probably doing besides going on little adventures. I say these three in particular because usually if the parents grow up together and are friends, I imagine they would want their children to also grow up together, especially in this case as Sumia and Cordelia and Sully are part of Crom's army and they probably all grew up together. I think we can also add Stahl to this, if I'm remembering correctly. But when her father died, she ended up hating that fact, and learning more about her mother, she started taking after her more and more and liking her father less and less. Well, not liking less, but more like missing, because she doesn't really know what he left for her, since Sully left her training to Kjelle, and she can build more with that, but with her father, not so much. I really hope that made sense, because in my head, it did. I honestly tried to come up with some kind of evidence so I just didn't throw Crom out due to being the lowest score, and there isn't much of Kjelle's father, so I tried looking in between the lines and connecting them together. And if we go with my idea of Sully dying first and her father second, then I would say Crom is out because I always believed Crom died first. Crom died after Lucina is born and before any second child or any of the other children are born. So because of that, we're now looking at Donnel, Gaius, and Libra, in that order. Donnel and Sully support, go! C support. Seems Donnel caught a glimpse of Sully battling on the field and winning. He's actually a little jealous and compares her to a knight in the stories he used to be told by his mother. Sully then says she is actually a knight. This surprises Donnel, as he thought she couldn't hear him, but she says she and probably half the army could, and he apologizes. This is a common thing with Donnel, I swear. He then asks her what's it like to be a knight. She would if she stops calling her Sir Ma'am, and then asks why he would want to know if he's interested in being a knight. Turns out he doesn't want to be a knight, But to him, it's kind of legendary since he's only heard of them in stories, but now he's curious having met one. After more banter, Sully said they would talk more at dinner and Donnel thanks her. B support. I'm assuming it's maybe a few days later or the next day, but Donnel thanks Sully for the chats. Sully is happy someone actually cares about knights, and Donnel, happy to hear that, said he'd love to learn more about them. This surprises Sully as she didn't think it was very interesting. Donnel replies that the life of a knight is a brand new area he's interested in since he's been a farmer. Sully agrees to talk more about it if they barter. Well, Donnel doesn't really have anything to offer in exchange for Sully's chats, but she said she wants to hear his stories. Donnel is confused a bit since it's just his time as a farmer and doesn't seem interesting, but to Sully, she points out it's not interesting to him, but it is to her. Ooh, I see, flipping the reason from earlier. Love it. Especially because it's a foreign concept to Sully as she grew up in a castle. So Donnel says he might have a few stories and he will tell them to her at dinner time again. A support. Sully thanks Donnel for the amusing story he told her and says that she missed out on stuff being a city girl? I guess it makes sense. Am I weird for finding that phrase out of place in this concept? Anyway, Donnel says she shouldn't be wanting to switch lives as there's a lot of things to do on the farm that aren't quite as fun, like ruined crops, raiders, sick livestock, etc. But Sully says being a knight isn't easy either, with politics, backstabbing, and following illogical orders. But I guess they were both telling each other good stories, and Sully figures they should tell their war stories the next time they talk. As support. Sully comes up to Donnel wanting to share stories again. Donnel asks if he isn't taking her time away from other things. Sully says not really, and if he's tired of telling her stories to just say so. Donnel says no, he really does love the chats they have and talking to her. Sully then says he should start talking as she's interested. This ends up getting Donnel flustered, wondering if she means interested as in she's interested in him. Sully says he's mumbling, he continues to mumble on about if she's really interested, and then as she shouts at him to get his attention again, this makes Donnel give Sully something which we all know is a ring. Donnel couldn't keep from asking her anymore since he told her his life story, all the good and bad, and she actually cared for him. Sully says she'd actually like to try out a simpler farm life and says yes. At least this is the short version of yes as I'm trying to summarize this.
Let's move on to Gaius. C support. Sully finds Gaius and is pretty mad. She asks him if he's the one who's lifting a part of her tent in the morning. Gaius says yes, as he was admiring the canvas, but Sully also says she was missing a gemstone and asks him to think very hard if he's seen any thieves or sketchy people lately. Gaius says no, but he would have hurt them if he did. Sully says if he does see something, he'd tell her, right? Gaius said he would, but then asks Sully if she suspects him of being the thief. Sully doesn't take this well, saying she would never suspect his fellow shepherd, to which Gaius tells her to put her sword away. He just thought she would because, well, he is a thief after all. B support. Sully finds Gaius again. He asks if she slapped anyone yet. She says no, the day is still young. But about her gem, it turned out to be in a magpie nest. Birds like shitty things. They will steal them! You've been advised about birds! Sully apologizes to Gaius for coming to him first suspecting him. Gaius says it's alright, but he understands since he is the man whose job is to steal stuff or get information. Sully then says she usually doesn't judge people off the bat, but she instantly thought of him when her jewel was gone. Gaius points out she wouldn't suspect Crom or Lissa because they never done that or would do that. And then something about honor? Sully says a part of the Knight Code that she follows and says if Gaius wants to have more honor, she can definitely help with that. Gaius isn't really sure though and says thieves need downtime. Sully, however, isn't gonna let this go. And tells him to meet her in the yard in the morning. And to maybe bring a bucket. Ew. A support. Sully's giving orders for Gaius to do 50 push-ups. It didn't go well. Gaius needs some sort of break or food or something, but Sully isn't lighting up because that was just the warm-up. Gaius manages to get up and Sully is impressed because by now, everyone who tried her training before gave up at that point. Gaius said if he knew leaving was an option, he would have left a long time ago. But Sully says she knows he wants to keep going. Gaius, though, wants to die at this point, but catching his breath, he's ready for at least one more round. And his spirits was actually lifted a little. Sully is kind of surprised, asking if he really needed to be cheered up. That he did, because often he looks back to when he was a kid and being a thief for a long time. And maybe this training will do him some good. Or, he's too tired to think straight. Sully says maybe her training is actually working and that they need to meet the next day an hour before dawn for even more training. But not before Gaius finishes his 23 laps. And Gaius seems to be enjoying Sully's company. As support! Gaius and Sully were training, and Gaius said if they could finally finish then and there, and he is also out of breath. Sully is actually out of breath too. I think they were both training together and also competing who could last the longest. But Gaius does have something important to say to Sully. She asks what it is, and he says it would be better if they weren't exhausted. But Sully says she always has important conversations like this. Wait, what? She has important conversations while out of breath? Okay. Gaius agrees to this and tries to lift up something to her and can't, but we all know it's a ring, and asks to marry her. Sully wonders why, and Gaius responds, but she makes him forget his horrible past. He would explain more, but he's very tired. Sully eventually accepts, and they get their breath back. To do 10 more laps! They are weird.
Love works in mysterious ways, Morgan. Now on to Sully and Libra. See support. Libra was looking at some hoof prints when Sully appears. He was wondering who made them, but he figured out it was Sully and her horse. But since Libra was looking at hoof prints, she figured he has time on his hands and wants to talk to him a bit. Libra says he doesn't have any interest, but does offer to listen. And this is, very awkward because Sully was gonna complain about the lack of privacy when asked why. It's because she thought Libra was a girl, which happens many, many times. But when Libra asked again why, Sully says she isn't girly, but then decides to end the conversation to go ask someone else and leaves. Honestly, I feel like there shouldn't be so many supports with confusing Libra with a girl. You would figure once Libra joined the army, Chrome will say, "This is Libra and he's going to join us." I mean, literally, that's how I feel there shouldn't be as many supports of confusing him as a girl. Anyway, B support! A few days has passed and Sully finds Libra ready to apologize. Before she could, Libra says if it's for the other day that it wasn't necessary, but before even he could say that, Sully says it's to apologize for what she's about to ask. Man, these supports have a lot of back and forth, huh? She asks him what it's like to feel lady, pretty, Sully. My god, why? Even this threw Libra off? I mean, he doesn't really know how to feel about this. Well, I mean, in the long run, it does cause him trouble when he travels because he is often mistaken as a woman. But after asking Sully why she asked him, she says she isn't exactly girly, always asking to be respected as much as a man and as a knight, but after talking to Libra, he does feel different and maybe wants to be accepted for who she really is. Libra, however, feels he isn't the person suited to help Sully. In fact, he states the kind of person he really wants to be as a priest, and even after, Sully says that's exactly who he is. Libra, however, thinks otherwise. After making those statements, he apologizes and leaves. A support. Sully asks Libra if he has a dream. Libra wants the world to be at peace again. Sully completely expected their answer, but says he should think of something for himself. Libra states that seeing others happy brings him joy. But Sully, in retaliation, says it probably does make him happy, but it's alright to think of things for himself because it seems like he's making sure he's never happy in any kind of way, and she wonders why. Libra wondering why she would even wonder about him. Sully says maybe she's just nosy, or maybe she likes him, like they're kindred spirits. Because for being opposites, they get along quite well with problems similar to each other. So much so, Sully asks if they would be partners for the war, which Libra agrees to. And lastly, a support. Libra finds Sully, who is kind of flustered. seems she is because she was running her mouth off the last time, like she was confessing her love for him. When Libra asked if she wasn't, she says she was not confessing her love for him. But this makes Libra wanting to apologize for reading the mood wrong because, well, he got her a ring. He apologizes and says he should just throw it away, but Sully says not to. Actually, she accepts. Libra says she shouldn't have to out of pity and his burden, but Sully's a strong girl, and she genuinely likes Libra, and it's not out of pity. Libra, light up, man. You have someone here who would accept you for who you are. And with that, we went through all 3 candidates. I feel like at this point it's a battle between Gaius and Libra. Both of these men would know how to cook. Gaius is extremely good with his hands, and Libra is usually the one I see who's good at multiple tasks or at multiple things. They both would help their child fit in.
But Libra doesn't fit with the other part you said.
That would be the feminine part. Teaching Kjelle makeup and stuff wouldn't be up Libra's alley. We even saw this in his support with Sully. Sure, you could say Gaius wouldn't be up for it, but I think he would. The man taught Lisa how to sew decently, and he bakes. He is bound to have some sort of understanding of makeup, etc., etc. So even though it was a tough battle between those two, Gaius seems to fit better as Kjelle's father. Also, let's take into consideration both Sully and Gaius are extremely stubborn, but also extremely loyal, which are also two words I would also consider to be associated with Kjelle, because she is extremely loyal to Lucina for the most part, and she's also very, very strong-headed. But having 2 very competitive parents or 2 very stubborn parents, it would make sense for the way that Kjelle acts in the future. So, that's it for this theory, and well, we would spin the shipyard wheel, but...
And spin!
Wait, Morgan!
The winner is Laurent!
The only option was Laurent. Oh well, I guess we're down to him. And then after that, I will continue with Lucina, Morgan, and Morgana. Just so that I don't confuse people, I will always refer to the female Morgan as Morgana, okay? So, I hope you enjoyed this theory. If you want to see the rest of them, they're on my channel. There are also other types of videos that I do, but today I'm going to be mostly asking for help for this one project, Project Ultimate Gift. All of the information is in the video, but all I will say is that if you want to submit some fan art to help celebrate 20 years of Super Smash Bros. And to show appreciation to Sakurai and his team for everything that they've done for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, go look at that video. There are the requirements, and I hope somebody would be interested. Other than that, if you want some background noise or are interested in an audio play, go watch Ties of Fate on the HarmonyNet Studios channel. This is a story that I have written for about almost 3 years now. I've written most of it. If you just need something in the background while you're doing chores, laundry, homework, whatever, I would suggest you go listen to Ties of Fate on the HarmonyNet Studios channel. And lastly, if you want to join my Discord server, The Stage, there is a link below. But if you do actually care about having a specific title on the server, you can always go to the Patreon and support me if you wish, or if you really just care about the title. So I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!